Good afternoon, dear students. In this lecture, we start to consider the marketing of educational services, and topic is the concept of marketing of educational services. Marketing is the art of creating a demand and the process of pursuing customers, existing as well as potential. Competition is everywhere. Educational service sector is not an exception. It should be noted that the need to market their services has not really been felt by Ukrainian education sector. As not so long ago, educational institutions have faced more demand than they could cope with. At some point, it is still especially true for high-rank universities. However, significant demographical decline intensified competition in this sector. For specialized fields like management and computer education, where attractive market potential has increasingly caused more and more institutions to be set up, competitive situation is changing rapidly. Even the institutions facing heavy demand have been confronted with the question of being able to choose the desired target customers and therefore face issues like product differentiation, product extension, diversification, and service integration. And all this has activated and interested in previously neglected area of marketing of educational services. Education is the process by which society deliberately transmits its accumulated knowledge, skills, and values from one generation to another through institutions. The act or process of imparting or acquiring general knowledge and of developing the powers of reasoning and judgment. Education is a pure service sector which is characterized by intangibility, inseparability, heterogeneity, and perishability. In addition to that, ownership or the lack of it characterizes this type of service. Education as a service then can be said to be fulfilling by a need for learning, acquiring knowledge, providing an intangible benefit, for example, increment in knowledge, professional expertise, skills, produced with the help of a set of tangible, means infrastructure, and intangible components, faculty, expertise, and learning, where the buyer of the service does not get any ownership. He may have tangible physical evidence to show for this service exchange transaction, but the actual benefit accrued is purely intangible in nature. In the context of education, the customer only buys access to education or derives the learning benefit from service provided. There is no transfer of the ownership of tangibles and intangibles which have gone into creation of the service product. Payment of fees or price for the service is just the consideration for access to knowledge and for the use of facilities for a given danger. Most educational institutions are product-oriented rather than market or student-oriented. They perceive themselves as producers of certain educational programs rather than satisfiers of certain learning needs. This lack of marketing orientation keeps those managing educational institutions from realizing and exploiting the role that promotion could play in attaining their organizational objectives. Now consider education as a service. Services are those separately identifiable, essentially intangible activities which provide both satisfaction and are necessarily tied to the sale of the product and other service. Education is a service which is geared primarily to the consumer market. The educational services sector comprises establishments whose primary activity is education, including public, not-for-profit and for-profit establishments. Included also are elementary and secondary schools, community colleges, universities, business schools, management training, technical and trade schools, and also other schools and institutions and educational support services. Let's consider non-profit and for-profit distinctions in higher education. So, non-profit organization is tax-exempt donors, endowment, stakeholders, shared governance, prestige motive, cultivation of knowledge, discipline-driven, quality of inputs and faculty power. If we consider for-profit organization, is tax-paying investors, private investors, investment capital, stockholders, traditional management, and profit motive, application of learning, market-driven, quality of outcomes, and customer power characteristics of this organization. Now talk about educational goods. You know that educational programs cannot operate without educational materials and equipment. These constitute the industry in educational goods. Commercial activities include the design, manufacture, and sales of textbooks, teaching materials, vocational and scientific equipment, educational software and videos, multimedia, and school furniture as well as school supplies. Need for marketing educational services. Need to market their services has not really been felt by the educational sector, as there is always demand more than supply. And a large number of institutions for specialized fields have been set up for fields like management and computer education, and these in competition in this market.
Marketing of education is gaining momentum with the drive private institutions, change in people's attitude towards education, and the change in scope for the different courses being offered. The technological changes and shrinking global boundaries have increased the significance of marketing for education services. And the education service can be described as a high contact, consumer and people-based service. However, innovative methods like using multimedia kits while providing the service are making interaction between the instructor or lecturer and student less significant. With the changes in customer education and the job market, the market for unconventional courses is increasing. So no marketer can afford to ignore these markets. As the education service is intangible, inseparable and perishable, certain implications exist for marketing. And service quality is not consistent for all customers.
or even a single customer at all times, so the marketer's job becomes tough. They are required to ensure that these features of the education service are better utilized to meet the varying needs of customers. The current stage of higher education development and changes in educational paradigm are mostly predestined by a variety of factors, most important of which include processes of globalization and integration into the international educational space, development of information society and economy based on knowledge. New benchmark of 21st century is the development of society and individual based on knowledge and intellectual capacities. Entrepreneurial spirit, systematic thinking, originality, and speed of decision making, creativity ensure the survival, competitiveness, and become the most valuable intangible assets. High speed of life and constant change, introduction of new technologies, increased competition, growth of revenues from the use of intellectual property, then internet penetration in all economical sectors, global information and knowledge exchange, this is all factors make the beginning of a new stage in economic development and growth of knowledge economy. Orientation to the world's standards of education, improving the quality, relevance, and practical applicability of educational products and services became an obligatory part of universities' competitiveness. Learning curriculums and standards are being renewed according to current advanced technologies as well as requirements of labor market to the level of competence among future specialists. In process of strategical development, universities start to consider versatile customer needs, capabilities, and motivation of academics, and it should be noted that all this helps to introduce more marketing tools to the work of university. Educational service providers, more than anything, need to be competitive. Often, it is the key component of success. The customer supply shows up the service scape expected to be served. The delivery system in place will satisfy or dissatisfy or also please the customer. And it is always important to remember that the customer cannot be completely separated from the service. Here, the service providers mean teaching fraternity and non-teaching community, directly and indirectly associated with the services rendered to the students. Satisfaction and retention of the students solely depends on the way the teachers are in a position to deliver their best services to them. Teachers are not treated as guru, rather they are known as facilitators, services providers. Growth and existence of an educational institute, particularly the professional education organization, depends on their competency, effectiveness, efficiency, sincerity, dedication, and devotion of the teaching community of the institute. People proved at the most vibrant component of educational services marketing mix. the present era, it's not natural resources or natural wealth which distinguish an affluent society from a backward one. It is the accumulation and development of the knowledge resource. Education was never as important utility as it's today. People, however, differ in the benefits they seek from the educational services offered to them. It is important, then, in order to be able to satisfy these needs and wants effectively, that a marketing orientation be applied to the conceptualization, design, and delivery of educational service. Educational planners, in order to plan the service, offer well and deliver it effectively, need to understand the behavior of the target population and the criteria they use to exercise choice. Another key to issue to better delivery of the education service is that it is performed for people and by people. People therefore represent the starting point for analysis to proceed conceptualization, conceptualizing the service offer and developing it into a marketable service package. So, the education service offered by the institution must reflect the organizational response to the identified needs and wants of the target segment in a given socio-economic context. However, the beginning of successful service delivery, in this case, is in satisfying the needs of service providers. If university focuses its marketing activities on the needs of practical implementation of gained knowledge, it is particularly important to develop requirements for the quality of educational services and technology to maintain the quality management system. Quality of education is a necessary condition of universities' competitiveness in context of international integration and high domestic competition. It most importantly depends on the quality of human resources. And so, one of the main directions of higher education development should be the development of teachers' potential. In this regard, development, the strategy of university professors, potential involvement plays an invaluable role in international relationship marketing. And each school must have a current program of training and supporting its personnel, which in turn is part of the strategic marketing plan for the development of the institution. And at this moment, building an effective system of respectable earnings for the higher education employees is task of socio-economic nature. Reputational strength and position of universities employees in educational market depends on how well this system built. Let's consider the main characteristics of educational services. The first characteristic is intangibility. Education is intangible dominant service because education is impossible to touch, see, or even feel. Next feature is perishability. Production and consumption, simultaneous activities. No inventories can be made up. For instance, a lecture scheduled cannot be stored. Next feature is inseparability. There is a need for the service provider to be present when the service is to be performed and consumed. Next, other characteristics of education service is high fixed cost, low variable cost, specialized and need-based, competition, high level of competition, customer limitations, and also heterogeneity. The main goal of marketing in higher education institutions is to define quality education system, market-oriented, whereby one cannot ignore the institution primary role and function, which is to provide a specific type of service of general social benefit in accordance with its needs. Marketing strategies and activities of business marketing in educational system are limited, much more than in other service and production industries, due to the direction influence of state regulations defining the educational system, with established control mechanism of accreditation bodies prescribing the evaluation system as well as quality control system. So, basic role of a marketing strategy is to combine competence and other strategies of an educational institution to coordinate challenges and constraints of the environment and to find best way to realize its mission and visions. Therefore, in order for the organization to be able to meet contemporary requirements of ever-changing business environment, it is necessary that it itself becomes subject to the change and initiate them on its own. Formulation of a higher educational institutional marketing strategy includes decisions about the institution's current programs and markets, whether to maintain, building, or drop them. On the second stage, we talk about future new program and market opportunities. On the third stage is analysis of competitors. Step number 4, positioning of the institution in relation to competitors. Then, step number 5, selection of target markets and designing of the marketing mix. Creation of marketing mix service concept needs to be realized in a way that provides a synergy between marketing, process management, and human resource management. Thus, if the heart of modern strategic marketing, as indicated by Kotler, is comprised of market segmentation, evaluation, and selection of target market segment and positioning. For example, differentiation, then their use in organization pursuits should primarily be oriented towards gaining competitive advantage. This should especially be the case with the offer positioning with the aim of providing a more favorable image on a certain segment in comparison to the present and potential competition.